I'm Lama Tantrapa. Welcome to the Secrets of Qigong Masters, the talk show brought to you by Academy of Qidao, the first and only school in the world offering professional education in Qigong coaching. To find out about Qigong coaching and the programs offered by Academy of Qidao, please visit qigongcoaching.com. Today, I'm honored to interview Dr. Jerry Allen Johnson. He is the foremost expert in medical Qigong in America and an author of many books on Taoist alchemy, magic, and the art of transformation. I noticed that you whipped out a wonderful book that you just produced and published, the Taoist Internal Alchemy, Neigong and Weigong Training. Would you share with us a little bit about this training and this particular book?
Well, this is the thickest book that I've wrote in the magic tradition, 618 pages, and I've met so many people asking questions about Neigong training and Weigong training that part of the training is really its transformation, and so I decided just to be honest, and something happens. You turn 60 and you go, I think I want to leave something back. So in writing this, I kept on praying, what is it they need to hear? What is it that anyone, whether they're in martial arts or healing arts or into any form of mysticism, can gather, can hear to improve themselves? So I took all the secret teachings from the Neigong training, and they are secret. They're not. It was the first time I put them in the books. So there are spread out through the whole book is different Neigong trainings about the body for the inner structure. It'll set up a very powerful internal dynamics that we've kept from disciple to disciple. So I put that training in there, and then I also talked about why we do these things. We do Qigong, but why? What is the purpose and function of that? I would teach my class, and they go, okay, I'm going to teach you the gathering the sun's essence or gathering the moon essence. Why? Why are we going to do that? Why? And then as I explained to them about in internal dynamics, the beautiful thing about the Taoism is they believe that my body is a microcosm of the macrocosm. So the sun, moon, star constellations are inside of me. They have the energetic potential and the power to affect my tissues, to affect my mind, my thinking. We used to always tease about it. Any full moon will show you that. At the full moon, you get people that are just strange because of the energy, full moon, new moon. And sometimes in the full moon, everyone is running out because the moon, the energy and light, the yang with the yin, it begins to affect the sea of marrow, which it begins to affect the individual. So with the training, what I did is I put everything in there, because a lot of times I'll meet people and they go, well, I've done the microcosmic orbit for 20 years. Okay. And I go, well, what can you do with it? And they go, what? I go, Qigongs are like prescriptions. Each one teaches you to get you to a certain state, and then you leave it alone, you go into the next one. You don't stay with the same one. There's sometimes you'll use it for regulation, but that's it. For 20 years, you should be at it further along, but no one tells them that. They really don't. So I put the whole system that I was taught in here. And then it's funny because once the disciples get it, then they go, now I understand why this organ is attached to this type of energy, which is attached to this mineral, plant, and animal, which is attached to this organ system, which is attached to this planet and this star constellation, because I linked it all up. So that was kind of like my gift.
So the disciples are probably wondering, so why is Professor writing this for everyone? Because now anybody can buy this book and get the same information that disciples had to work for years to receive.
One thing is the head knowledge, the other thing is the heart knowledge. and I always tell them, the information is self-regulating. If you steal the book and do all this, they have guardians and they won't let you, because of your deception, they won't let you go beyond a certain level.
But if you buy this book on the internet, it's going to be okay.
No. What it'll do is it'll fill in the blanks, and then you need to find a teacher that you trust. And I've written this in emails so many times. You need to find a teacher that you trust, that you believe that has your highest good. That's the hardest thing, is finding a good teacher, because a lot of them are it's just a difficult thing to find. It's hard to find someone that puts your spiritual walk as the highest purpose of your relationship. And that's because they have spiritual accountabilities. To do that, then you just have to study and watch. And usually that's why that one teacher was not wanting me to teach the public, is because part of the teaching is the downloading. And I talked about it in here. In downloading, there's an overshadowing, and the lineage pours right through the person. And if they're open, they'll receive it, and all the information comes in. If they're not, and they're just there for the information, it doesn't work. I was telling this to my wife, and I go, look, I'm going to give you an example. And she was in the kitchen. I go, open up to me. So she opens up to me. Now, I'm going to overshadow you. And as I overshadowed her, I was doing microcosmic order. So I enveloped her, and then she started going, boom, 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 and then stopped. And then, you feel that? She goes, yeah, I'm going like this. I go, good. Now, armor against me. I'm going to do it. Now, ready? She goes, yeah. Did the exact same thing, nothing happened. So I go, now what'd you feel? She goes, nothing. I go, exactly. You either open or close, and the energy's always there. It's your receptivity. That's why a lot of times this stuff is hidden, but it's out in the open. I can give you this and you can have a head knowledge, but I have to still impart it to you, and you earn that by your trust with the teacher and also your relationship with the divine. Otherwise, what happens, they have guardians that go, no. And that's why sometimes in class, we'll get a big class of people, and you start teaching, and they'll go, not that. And so, okay, so you change the subject or give them other things, because that one person will take that knowledge and hurt themselves. And the reason why we dismiss the students is because we really love them and care about them. And if they continue on in their pathway, to whom much is given, much is expected, they get all this information and they're not doing anything about it.
Or they're not ready.
Or they're not ready. Then it sabotages their spiritual growth.
Well, I was just teaching a workshop on energetics and martial arts, and I experienced exactly that I was going to present a certain aspect of my teachings, and I realized that the folks aren't ready.
Right.
So I just immediately diverted to a different side of my program that was more digestible to them. And I wonder if anyone who purchases this book, may I look?
Sure.
Anyone who purchases this book would be able to benefit from it,
Oh,
or
yeah.
they have to actually have some kind of preparation or preliminary practices, like in Tibetan Buddhism, for example.
In the beginning, it's an explanation of how we divide it up into 3 levels of training. Then go through all the different trainings which are used for purification to qualify you for the training that's in the back of the book. A lot of times people get bits and pieces of the stuff from the back of the book, and they try to do it and it doesn't work. And then they go, well, it doesn't work. My teacher once said, oh, the piano doesn't work. I tried it once. It was
sounds terrible.
You have to apply yourself. And I explained that. The idea is about, you need this to succeed. You need this. And this is why we have you do this, is to purify, remove this, so that later, and we don't talk about it except for with the disciples, is that you have a yin and a yang shen. Okay, you have a shen, spirit, but it's fighting yin and yang. The yin is like a golden light, white light energy, and the yang is like a golden light. In the advanced training, any type of shortcut that you take, when you get up to a certain level, you go into, the energy exposes and it comes out. When that happens, the yin shen comes out, and it becomes the delusional fantasies that you either get trapped in, or that they're demonic states that they chase you. They're not really demonic states. They're your unhealed, unprocessed
This is your own dream.
emotions. Yes.
Yeah, it creates a nightmare for yourself.
And it's projected back into you. But if you do and so what I explain in the book is, It happens to everyone, and this is why there's no shortcuts. We do this first to clear that up, so that when that state happens, the yang light is stronger than the yin light, and it takes very little to transform and get rid of that so that you can go on to the next stage. If not, it's self-regulating. But the problem about that is that if they do the cheaters, then they open themselves up usually to a dark, turbid energy. When that happens, it attracts dark, turbid energy into their lives, and this is why you end up with people that are supposed to be spiritual that end up angry and malicious and cruel.
Well, that's usually what happens when people, instead of spiritual, become religious.
Right.
So if people who are not ready to read this volume, will they become more cruel and malicious?
No, I think what will happen is as they begin to read it, they'll begin to realize, oh, that's why we're taught this, and that's why this happens. And it'll give them the foundation for whatever spiritual tradition it's kind of neat, because I started printing it the first week of this month, and I've already had to do 4 reprints for it, because it's sold out, and it's going all over the world. It's kind of neat. I was telling Indonesia, Hong Kong, Macau, China, Germany, Australia, England, and then all over the US, and it's just, it's kind of neat because I'm getting all this, thank you, all these letters, which is kind of neat, because the purpose is to help anyone who's walking a spiritual path. And they don't have to be Taoist. It will make sense for the Christians, it'll make sense for the Buddhists, it'll make sense for for Taoist, for Muslim, for Hindu, it fills in all the pieces.
Interesting. When you distinguish between Neigong and Weigong.
Okay, Ne is the inner,
Yes.
Wei is the external.
And we just talked about how the inner and outer become one when you attain a certain level of realization.
Okay.
So are you teaching from the level of realization where the Neigong and Weigong become one and the same Gong, or
Yes.
it's not for that level yet?
No. It's first you understand what the Weigong is, then you stand with it. In other words, you do a hand seal. You can do a 5. You can do this one hand seal, Taishang hand seal. Okay, if you do this hand, okay, ready?
Yes.
Okay, so this is a Mount Tai.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, this represents the 5 sacred mountains. Okay, this being center. Okay, this also represents the 5 planets. So externally, they're attached to 5 mountains, attached to 5 elements on each of the mountains. Celestial, they're attached to 5 planets, and then the different elements in each planets. This is also attached to deities and energetic fields, both terrestrially and celestially. This is also attached to my 5 yin organs. So I first have to establish a relationship with this earth, and this energy affects me here. This planet and this energy field affects me here. And then you group them all together, and now that one hand seal pulls me into the center of heaven and earth. That's my beginning point. But unless you have someone teach you, that's just a hand, you might as well be doing these things. Because
it might be fun too.
Yeah. And so the whole purpose of the book is to say, this is related to this, and this is why you're taught this. Then there's elixirs. Why do we do elixirs? Why there's talismans that connect with elixirs? Because that works on this, that works. And I put all the elixir, I put elixir formula, and I talk about how this attaches to, or is attributed to this planet and this element, and how it affects the internal. Eventually, all of them fuse as one. As they fuse as one, then there's no separation between the earth and the heavens.
Right.
But then you dissolve quickly into the infinite space of the Wuji. This happens because you embody it, not because it's in your head, but because you know it to be true. One of my favorite interviews was they were interviewing Carl Jung. And at the end of the interview, the reporter was talking to him. He goes, do you believe in God? And Carl Jung looked at him and goes, no, I know God. There's a difference between knowing and believing.
Right.
The book will explain different exercises that help you to know this energetic state. Then at the back of the book are the exercises. Now that you know this energetic state, we train like this to develop this spiritual state. And this is what we've talked about throughout the centuries about the immortal body, the rainbow body, the indestructible body, and what they call it, it's still the same thing. It has these energetic properties and why it works. So.
Yeah, and this book has a lot of interesting illustrations.
That's because I'm visual.
Did you draw them yourself?
No, I have a friend of mine that's an artist. I was very fortunate. He was a poor artist, so I said, you can have class for free, but I'll keep you on retainer because I'm visual and I'll show you different things and you can draw them, okay? And he goes, oh yes! So he was happy, I was happy, and he went through the whole program.
Wow, and basically this is the same artist that also drew the pictures or illustrations for your other books?
No. The one for the, the medical Qigong artists are different from the Taoist artists.
Okay. Wonderful. Speaking of the Taoist artists, we are all kind of exploring the Taoist arts as we engage in the study of Qigong and Tai Chi and other internal disciplines. When we begin to integrate these arts into our daily lives, and our daily lives begin to transform, what would you consider the type of feedback that indicates that we are on the right track?
Every night before you go to bed, take inventory. You take inventory of the things that were said and done, and if you liked what you did. How I start my disciples on this is I go, I'm going to put you through a meditation. You've all died. You're in heaven. You made it. There was no problem. You have eternal life. It's just what you... Now you're looking back. Do you have any regrets? What would you change? You're going to make it anyhow. What are your regrets? What would you do different? And they begin to think, oh, and I go, no, don't tell me. Just write it down and tell yourself. Once they do that, I go, okay, now let's see if we can do this now every night. Take inventory.
And wallow in your regrets.
No, don't wallow in your regret.
No, I'm joking.
Go as an observer. As you become as an observer, you go, oh, Jerry did this, and Jerry's response was that. Could you have done anything different? Well, I would have done this. Okay. Would you have wanted to? Maybe next time. Okay. And you don't attach to it. You don't hold on to it. You're just looking and watching. If something stands out and goes, I could have done that better, and then you go, okay, where is this, that's a reaction and a response. What's the youngest you remember feeling the same way you did and why you did that? Well, I was feeling this. Okay, well, what's the youngest you remember doing that? Well, it was this. Okay, let's heal from this so that you can alter the present and change. To heal from this, you just acknowledge the story and then release the story. But to heal, I have to acknowledge and see it first. I can't go, oh, my past, I let my past go. Now I'm practicing spiritual denial and unaccountability. And I can tell you exactly, well, this attitude currently, if I can go back and feel where it originated, then I can go, okay, this one incident set this in motion. I'm choosing to let it go. All right, to let it go, I need to then from there see that. I need to see, it's forgiving. Okay? I forgive.
Forgiving?
Forgiving. First is forgiving the situation. Okay? Oh, it's only 5. Okay? Forgiving myself for holding on to it. Forgiving the situation. Forgiving the person I believe that hurt me. And forgiving the divine, because I usually have that as, it's a subconscious thing where you attack a deity or the divine source because this has happened to me, and if you truly love me, you would never have allowed that to happen to me. Now, for those to be effective, And the last one, it goes into gratitude. You're very grateful for the experience because of the lessons that learned. You don't own this body, you have to leave it. And when you come back, I had talked with one guy who was steeped in his culture. In his culture, you do this because we've always done this. I go, where did you learn that from? He goes, my mom and dad. I go, you believe in reincarnation? He goes, yes. Well, you're of this culture. Next time they come back, what if they're of this culture? It had nothing to do with this. They don't even believe that because they don't have that in this culture. So why are you choosing to hold on to that? Who taught you to hold on to that? And you go, oh, so getting your power back, that is acknowledging, okay, I've made a decision, now I'm making a decision to let it go. Remember the Dragon Gate teacher I told you I learned from back in my 20s? He sat down with me once and he goes, give me your definition of rejection. And I'm like, no. He goes, what? I go, no. He goes, Jerry, I'm your teacher. Give me your definition of rejection. I'm like, no. You know, he goes, no, I'm not.
I'm embodying the rejection.
He goes, I am your teacher. Give me your definition of rejection. And I go, all right. So I start off, I feel rejected when this happens, and I just went on for about 30 minutes. And this happens, and this, and he's sitting there, and he's listening to me. And he goes, all right, I understand why you became a fighter. And I go, why? He says, it's so easy to reject you. Immediately I wanted to hit him. You know, I was like, because I felt rejected. And so I'm mad at him. I'm feeling hurt and rejected because I just exposed my heart to him and I feel that he's betrayed and rejected to me. And so I'm looking at him and he's a man of God, so I don't want to hit him, but if he wasn't, you know, I'm going through all these excuses. And so he's looking at me and he goes, we have different definitions of rejection. So I looked at him and I'm mad. I'm like, so what is your definition of rejection? He goes, okay, in my definition of rejection, you have to know me intimately. You have to know my dreams of the future. You have to know the things that happened to me in the past. You have to know all my hopes and ambitions. If you can know all that about me and then say, get away, I don't want to have anything to do with you, then I feel rejected. And I looked at him and I was waiting for my opening and my turn. And so I looked at him and I go, well, what if I look at you and say, that's a stupid definition of rejection? And he looked at me and he goes, well, then I feel sorry for you because you've rejected sound wisdom, but you haven't rejected me because you don't know me. Mm-hmm. And the light went on. And I realized, oh, there's a difference between what we say and who we... Oh! And then I understood. It all came together. And I go, well, Siva, do you mind if I adapt the same definition of rejection that you have? And he goes, son, listen to me. Let's you and I visit an elementary school, and we'll take a 5-year-old, we'll put him on a desk, and then we'll get out our notebook and say, give me your definition of love, your definition of rejection, your definition of hope. I will live by that. Are we wise? I go, no, we're foolish. He's only 5 years old. He goes, exactly. A lot of times, frozen inside of us are these definitions. And that's why, have you ever seen adults throw temper tantrums and act like 5 years old? I'm like, yes, all the time. He goes, it's the 5-year-old throwing the temper tantrum in the all they are is little children in big bodies. Mm-hmm. Because a lot of times you'll deal with people that are emotionally handicapped. And you have to look at that as that they're emotionally handicapped. That's it. They're stuck, and they're not going to act the way you want them to act, because sometimes if you see a little child throw a temper tantrum, they're not listening. They're closed off. So since you've programmed the computer in that definition, I'm just teaching you how to find the source of when you programmed it, how to just override it and then program something different. So we heal from the past and we'll change our present and then we'll alter our future. Otherwise, all your decisions now are based on your past woundings, and they will guarantee you with these type of jobs, always these type of friends, always this type of relationship. And I go, wow, he goes, it's simple and profound, yet it's so real that if you trust me and do the work, and that's why they call magic the work, you will completely alter your life.
Yeah, they call it kung fu, right?
Well, it's part of what, remember, this was my assistant pastor. This was the one that called me in and said, Brother Jared, can I talk with you? And he sat down with me. He was the one who had my first teacher of the Dragon's Gate teaching.
And now, when we're talking about definitions, obviously we develop these definitions on the basis of what we've heard from other people,
Right.
what we've read in books,
Right.
what we've heard through the media.
Right.
Rarely do we develop our own definitions from
Right.
scratch.
Right.
So when you heal from the past wounds and you let go of the old definitions,
Mhm.
and then somebody asks you, so what is your new definition? What is going to inform your new definition?
The new definition is actually what you've embodied of that statement. Every statement, your truth, is it's a projection of cultural trends, the things that you get from your culture that you believe as a child all the way up to present, a projection of your hopes and fears that this will happen. These are your filters. They're projections of your senses, the things that you see, smell, and know to be and believe to be true, but not necessarily true. I had 3 students go through a car accident, and so I watched the incident, and so I interrogated each of them differently to find out who saw what I saw. These 2, their story was completely obscure and tweaked. I was like, how did they get that from what happened? The third one had the same recollection of what we all saw. Found out later these 2 were molested when they were a little child. So the minute they saw the accident, they left their bodies, and so their stories were obscure and their own fears tweaked the truth. This one didn't have a history like that. So they were tracking the incident, and so even though it happened really fast, they were able to be in that state, and this happened here, where these 2, and it was only through talking with them that information came up. But their definition of truth was completely different. Now, they weren't lying. It's just that their perspective was marred by the filters that happened when they were a little child.
Well, as I was asking, what happens once you have healed?
Okay, I'm getting to that.
Okay.
So, as they worked through the trauma, and then they realized it wasn't personal, that this person was a predator and they would have done it, do you understand, it was wrong place, wrong time. It doesn't justify and let the person off. What it does is help understand that this is an incident that, although how horrible, it can now be used to their advantage because they're not alone in that wounding. And then they ended up becoming counselors to other people. So now they look at that and go, well, no, someone needs to be able to counsel these people from a healed perspective. It's not until I heal from this that I can say that this happened to me. That definition of molestation then changed, because instead of being charged with the wounding, they understood that this incident, although how horrible, it happens sometimes to little boys, little girls, that in this incident, that wasn't a crippling factor of who they are. They're no longer stuck in that. And that freed them to influence this person's life for the better, this person's life for the better. And we're talking hundreds of people that once they've embraced it, and they embraced the wounding and healed from that, they were no longer held prisoner by that concept of that word definition. So when they say that, well, yes, this happened to me at this age, it was very tragic. And as I healed from that, and so now their definition of that is just another wounding that they've healed from, and they've moved on. But they have to first embody and accept that, work through the healing and forgiving, understand that it wasn't personal. I'll give you an example. I have a student many years ago named Hugh, and he had a very I used to think that Hugh has passed, so I can use his name. We used to tease about him, and because you'd ask him a question and he'd go like this, and you'd wait for him to answer, and then he'd finally come back and answer the question. And so we used to tease and go, the 60s were hard on Hugh, you know, because he did a lot of drugs.
Too much LSD.
Oh, yeah. And so what happened was I started working with him privately. We started going through all the Nagum training, and all this stuff came up. And I found out that Hugh was raised, he never did drugs. In fact, he's quite brilliant. But he had an extremely angry alcoholic father. And his father would ask him questions at the table, and if he couldn't answer right away, his father would jump up and start beating him. So when you ask Hugh a question, he would immediately leave his body.
He was ready for getting beaten.
Because if he couldn't answer right away, he would just leave. So that was a pattern inside of him.
One would think that he would actually learn to answer questions right on the spot.
No, because the beatings were so, you were talking about 5, 6, 7 years old.
Oh,
Okay.
I see.
So I started working with Hugh, and then to help him override the imprinting of his father, I drew these charts on the blackboard, and I go, okay, Hugh, who is your higher power? I'm going to help you because the idea is to have the observer overview all this. Who's your higher power? He goes, I don't have a higher power. I go, oh, sure, you believe in the divine, right, and a God, right? He goes, no. I said, well, you believe in some kind of power, right? He goes, no. I go, well, who's your higher power? Me. I'm my own higher power. I'm like, okay, let's use this. This, and I'll draw a circle and I'll draw it in half. This is the divine, this is the yang side, this is the yin side, this is the primary subconscious imprinting pattern, the person who had the most influence. And I drew a line down and go, here's you here in your conscious, this represents your subconscious. Usually in most people like you, this is your father. He represents a dark side because it is his imprinting. He's a god. He comes in and you follow. He sets the rules and the standards. For women, most of the time it's their mother. It just depends on the primary control parent. But listen, for you, it's your dad, right? He goes, yeah, he was the one that you learned. Now, the divine side is God. That's usually the part of you that go, hey, you don't treat people this way. It's an innate divine state that you know. It is a part of an innate code of conduct. It can be overridden eventually, but usually we all come in with that. It is the part that challenges this imprinting. We've always done it ever since we were little. You begin to realize that they're not complying. I have to learn their rules to survive. So there's a survival mechanism that sets in. Are you with me? He goes, yeah. So this side feeds this. This is the Hugh and the conscious effort, and this is the subconscious. This divine side feeds Hugh here. So, you with me? He goes, yeah. There's a conscious observer that just watches. It makes no judgments. If you go down this road, this is going to happen. If you go down the road, this is going to happen. You with me? He goes, yeah. So, this is your dad feeding you the dark. This is God feeding you the light. This is what you go into conflict where you challenge. I'm going to erase God. I'm going to put Hugh down here because this is the imprinting. I'm going to put Hugh up here. He goes, okay. So what you're telling me is your dad is your God and will always be your God. Because Hugh can't rise above the dad. That's not true. I go, that is why we embody the patterns of the parents that we hate. I'm just trying to give you the keys to get out of this. And all I'm drawing on the blackboard is what you've told me is your life. Now, this is usually a higher power. It's called a higher power because it's a power that challenges this imprinting. If you don't have something to challenge it, you cannot override it. So you are destined and doomed to be like your father. Now, that could be a good thing or a bad thing, but coming from your history, I don't think it's a good thing. Now, as your teacher, I'm just here to enlighten. This is what you've created. This is your pattern. He goes, no, I go, Hugh, this is, I believe in God, I just don't believe in religion. Okay. So we have a divine source. So I'm not saying you have to, I'm just asking help because you asked to repattern this. I need a divine source to override this imprinting. And that is what gives you the strength to override this.
Does it have to be the divine source, or can it be some other higher power than personal power?
Well, it is usually something that I have, in my bishop class, I teach them exorcisms. And I go, now, these people may not believe in God, but the spirits do. And they're subservient to it. So that is the power that we use.
How do I know that they believe in God?
Well, because that is the only thing that binds them and removes them.
What informs that opinion?
Oh, from experience. That's really, how many exorcisms have you done?
No, I don't do it.
I do, and that's the only thing that they're subservient to. So I get people calling, oh, I don't believe in it. I go, well, they do. These spirits are subservient to this divine. Now, it is the only thing that we rest in. It is the thing that we have our security in. So with this divine light, eventually takes over this imprinted side and takes over the observer. And in a saint, they no longer follow the dictates of the inner programming. The divine has overshadowed that, and their observer comes in, and now they're not invested in the outcome, they're invested in service. And that is the true divine light that we follow. And that's where the true love and compassion comes from. Once you embrace that, then you can challenge the dark side at that point, because you have something that's higher than the imprinting. Then you rest in that, and eventually you start deprogramming yourself from all the things that you've been taught to react. Because we have initial reactions that are based on these initial programming since we were little. To challenge them, you have to see it. If not, it's just a natural recourse for you to do. That's why when you follow and do the work, it exposes that. And that's going all the way back to the initial question. That is why we take inventory. Because I want to expose these things, because it's my decision and choice to leave that behind. If I ask to heal from that, I have to see it. And it's not because you tell me, because I don't know you. I have to see and know it to be true. So to do that, I have to do the work, and it has to have an influence and a priority. And that's the cool thing about going back to having friends, is that your friends, you watch them in their struggles and overcome their life and watch them transform. As they watch you overcome and transform. And then you're always pulling each other up. And you rest in that. And then you realize after a while that we're all the same. I know that life is very precious, and everything's about transformation. And it's about our desires to help and to serve others that opens doors and closes doors. The neat thing about having each other and having this type of network is that you provide a service so that everyone can enrich in their lives and the lives of their friends. And so I just want to thank you for making this available to the public, and thank you for tuning in and for watching.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
You've been listening to the interview with Dr. Jerry Allen Johnson on the talk show The Secrets of Qigong Masters. This show is brought to you by Academy of Qidao, the first and only school in the world offering professional education in Qigong coaching. Please visit qigongcoaching.com to find out about the programs and events offered by Academy of Qidao.